Let's bring in Bruce Klingner, former CIA Deputy Division Chief for Korea and currently Senior Research Fellow for Northeast Asia at the Heritage Foundation. He joins us from Washington. Bruce, great to have you.
Thank you.
What, in your view, has happened since the first summit that suggests that, perhaps further progress can be made?
Well, I think really not much has happened. There's been no denuclearization of any kind since Singapore. In fact, North Korea continues to nuclearize, and there's also reports that they have expanded and refined the production facilities for fissile material, reentry vehicles, missiles, and mobile missile launchers. At Singapore, we had the president accept another vague, poorly crafted agreement like previous U.S. presidents that didn't clearly delineate North Korea's denuclearization requirements. In fact, the denuclearization section was weaker than one in 2005. And then in the press conference afterwards, President Trump surprised our allies and the Pentagon by unilaterally declaring an end to allied military exercises. We've canceled at least 9 since then, and North Korea didn't reciprocate. And as the U.S. commander on the peninsula said recently, they're right now engaged in the million-man winter training cycle that Pyongyang does every year.
Bruce, so you have a connection to Korea through your work for quite a few years, and we spent so much time talking about denuclearization. And I'm just wondering why we haven't heard a little bit more discussion about the biological and chemical weapons that several reports have said the North Koreans have been developing for years.
Right. Well, under the 11 UN resolutions, North Korea is required to abandon not only its nuclear and missile programs in their entirety, the arsenal and the production facilities, but also biological and chemical warfare. But I think that issue is sort of even more complicated, if possible, than the nuclear issue. It requires a whole different set of inspections and experts. So I think right now the focus has been on nuclear, and bringing in the missiles, hopefully into this summit and the last summit is something that really hasn't been discussed before. So I think BCW would just be seen as a bridge too far. It's hard enough to get progress on nuclear and then hopefully missile as well.
Are you optimistic of enough progress to be made to bring other people around the table? There's talk of getting the band back together, if I dare say it, the 6 countries, China, Russia, Japan, South Korea, US, as well as North Korea. This is what was brought together in 2003. We've had hints of it from Russia, tweets about it from Trump. Will we see more people at the table?
Well, first of all, we have to get progress at this summit, and there's a lot of concerns as to whether the president is so eager for an agreement that he's going to lower the bar on what is required under the 11 UN resolutions, or that he'll declare victory on things that are either have been achieved before or that things that sound good but really aren't a good idea, like a peace declaration. But we should try to really get back to multilateral focus. North Korea has always described the nuclear issue as a U.S. versus North Korea issue. And we've always pointed out, well, the UN resolutions are multilateral. They are requiring North Korea to take action. So by slipping into this U.S.-North Korea aspect, it makes us look like the bad cop, and then other countries such as South Korea can be the good cop in offering benefits. But we really need to focus on that it's the international community versus North Korea, or requiring North Korea to take action.
Bruce, what in your view would be the consequences of a premature announced end to the war?
Well, the peace declaration is something that's getting a lot of focus now. I think the president is likely to sign it. But it's something that North Korea has been looking for decades, and U.S. presidents have always pushed back on it. It's a political, symbolic, really meaningless document that does nothing to reduce the North Korean nuclear missile or conventional force threat. And what it does is it has some inherent risks. Beyond not really accomplishing anything and reducing the threat, it could further undermine international resolve to maintain the required UN sanctions until North Korea's triggering behavior is eliminated. Also, it could be a slippery slope on the security side of, if you have a meaningless peace declaration, then how can you not have a peace treaty, which would have some formal impact? And then why do we have so many troops there? Why do we have a nuclear umbrella protecting our allies? Why do we have carriers in the area, et cetera? So instead of a declaration, we should be working towards a peace treaty, which was one of the working groups in the 6-party talks. But to do that, what we need to have is address the North Korean conventional threat. So gestures like steps that we had in the Conventional Armed Forces in Europe Treaty, where we capped the military forces, we thinned them out from the contact zone, and that way it reduced the threat, in that case, of a Warsaw Pact invasion of Western Europe.
We thank you, Bruce Klingner, bringing us the perspective, former CIA Deputy Division Chief from Korea and current Senior Research Fellow for Northeast Asia at the Heritage Foundation. He seems to be long on symbolism and indeed on stake over there.